However, there are still countless others who are still left behind in Ethiopia and facing existential threats. Joining us now is anthropologist and filmmaker Dr. Malka Shabtai, once again coming into the studio with more exciting news. Hello and welcome back.
Good morning. Hello.
Good to see you. You're working very, very hard, and I really enjoyed your film Nafkot, which we're going to get to in a minute. But first, let's talk about the events a few weeks ago with over 300 Ethiopians coming here to Israel. What does this mean as far as the process of recognizing and bringing home Ethiopian Jews?
First of all, I'm involved with Ethiopian Jews in general for the last 40 years. I've been there since the beginning. These are exciting moments, these are peaks in the whole big story of the Israeli attitude and relation to Ethiopian Jews. Yes, we are in different times, which means that some government decisions that have been taken place many years ago, even in the days of Arik Sharon and others, have not been implemented. So now, what's happening now is actually implementing decisions that have been taking place many years ago by a Minister of Aliyah and Klita, Pnina Tamano-Shata, who is brave, persistent, and doesn't let anyone deceive her anymore and postpone it. And she got it. She got the implementation of this decision to fulfill and complete the aliyah of those who are waiting for many, many, many years in Addis Ababa and Gondar, who mainly has relatives of first degree in Israel. That story is very complex because it's a complex on family relations, relatives, and religious issues. So all of this, and politics. So all of these are mixing together. The bottom line is that Israel was not persistent enough taking decisions and deciding where is the red line, who is eligible for aliyah, why to keep people waiting and expecting to positive replies and making aliyah for so long. That's an issue that will be discussed by their children in the future for these unbelievable wrong happenings that took place. Now, we are all expecting that this will be completed as soon as possible.
Spending 4 decades dealing with the Beta Israel in Ethiopia, continue your thoughts, and then I want you to explain to our viewers that don't exactly understand what Beta Israel is.
Okay, so before I go on, let me explain. Beta Israel are the Jewish, as we call them, communities, but actually the Beta Israeli of Ethiopia are Israelite people considered to be from the tribe of Dan, one of the 10 lost tribes that immigrated to Ethiopia in different times and different journeys, mainly after the destruction of the first temple through Egypt and Yemen. Now, different groups have been formed throughout Ethiopia. There were times that was a Jewish king, a Jewish queen, the Queen Yehudit, and there were many, many, many people that are part of the large Beta Israel communities in Ethiopia. Here in Israel, a world jury got involved with the Jews of Gondar and Tigray mainly, and all the support, struggle, donations, and everything else were focused on the Gondar and Tigray communities. But that's the very small part of the iceberg. In Ethiopia, through history, all these different Beta Israel communities have gone through historical oppression by the church. Some of them have been totally destroyed by the church, forcing them, giving them money or land, convincing them to leave the Jewish tradition and receive Jesus to their life. Many have been immersed and joined the church. This is just like the story of the Bnei Anosim in other parts of the world. Some has kept some or part of the Jewish traditions secretly. For example, Shabbat, they would not go to the market, they would not go to the church, so they live in semi-Jewish and Christian life. They adopted Christian symbols, so they will not be persecuted, and they know very clearly their identity. but they did not have leadership, books, or ability to practice their religions throughout Ethiopia. But one community out of these communities is the community that now I dedicate my life in the last 4 years. This is the Beta Israel community in Kachane and Semyan Shoah. This community that numbers more or less 150,000 people, one of their leaders, the Herzl of this community, after the fall of Queen of Yehudit, they understood that they have to hide themselves. Otherwise, they will be killed. So they went to Semyan Shoah, which is a very remote area in Ethiopia, beautiful though, near the river Jamma, and throughout the river path, he built up 45 secret synagogues. Now listen to this. They call it Bet Mikdash, or synagogue. But they use an Ethiopian general term, Gedam, to hide themselves. Inside these secret synagogues, they practice ancient Jewish traditions, which I will mention in a minute. But who lives in these secret synagogues? The elderly people that cannot work and provide for themselves anymore, they come to be buried in the ways of their forefathers. So they live there and they practice all the ancient traditions, which are pre-Talmudic Jewish traditions. Also, they receive there the orphans of this community. This is the only community in Ethiopia in which the orphans of the community are not left out in the streets or in Mercato in Addis Ababa. Children from the age of 2 months old are brought there, and they created a very unique family model, the elderly people and the young children. They all fear of persecution and many problems. For example, the children don't go to school. They cannot go to school because they are considered to have the evil eye or witches. Wow. And they still have a lot of problems, and they survive there, eat once a day, pray, and so on. Just few examples of pre-Talmudic Jewish traditions. The most important tradition that they practice once a year throughout the community is the red cow ceremony. So, although there is no red cow anymore, this was the most severe tradition in the first temple, they still practice the same day, the same way of slaughtering. They, in one of the secret synagogue, they practice the red cow ceremony. They observe Shabbat very, very strictly. This is Ethiopia. There are no roads, there are no time, but everyone that want to practice Shabbat inside the secret synagogues must arrive before the sunset.
Okay. You spent many years going there, and so we see all of this in the film. So talk about the film.
Okay, when I first came to the community, it's, you know, how I heard about them 28 years before, and how somebody put me in touch with the community leader. Finally, 4 years ago, I came for the first time to Ethiopia, heard the story, and decided to take upon myself to try and find assistance and give them a hand and keep the hope to be part of this big Israeli family. For 2 years, I only did regular anthropological research. I studied, I visited places, I interviewed the elderly, the young generation, read everything that I could, and did a lot of research. After 2 years in a large community gathering, they say, we are ready to open up and tell our story with the world. Malka, please take upon yourself the mission to tell the story to the world. So we started the process of making a film. I went to film school. I studied film when I became 60. So I will have the language and the tools. And I started the process of making a film. Twice during Corona times, I went to Ethiopia with Israeli cinematographers, and we visited. They decided where to go. They allow me to come inside. They open up to me, and we did a whole work of filming, then editing, then completing the film, which was extremely difficult and sensitive. To make it very short, we completed the film. I inaugurated it first in Israel. The goals in Israel, this is not just an artistic word. The film is part of my mission and our mission. First, to share the story with the people of Israel, with the Ethiopian veteran community in Israel. The young generation don't know anything about this community. The older generation, the Kesoch, tell me, yes, we know about them. They are our sisters and brothers, but we actually forgot them because we were busy with ourselves. And decision makers, I send the film to the President of Israel, to the Prime Minister of Israel, and other VIP people who take decisions. We are now in this process. In Ethiopia, I came to Ethiopia to screen the film. First, when I came, so many people were frightened to death. Malka, please don't screen the film. We are afraid they will recognize us. And I said, only you will decide. So there were discussions, issues, the younger ones and one of the elderly people that we see in the film say, this is the time.
Congratulations on finishing the film and all of your special, special work. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.